Formed in 1974 from London, England, the band that we're honoring today departed from their clever new wave ditties and turned to one of rock's secret weapons to sing lead vocal on what would become their signature hit that had a major comeback and a movie in 94. The story of a song from 1981 that should have been #1 next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Tell you what, if you love the rock and roll era, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, click the subscribe button below. Do that right now. Click the bell so you never miss out on our content. To curate this history and to get more content and exclusives, become an official patron at the link below. Now, in 1980, the band Squeeze began drafting the plan for their fourth studio album, East Side Story. The record was conceived as an ambitious double four-sided LP that would be produced by some of music's biggest names at that time, including Sir Paul McCartney, Nick Lowe, Dave Edmunds, and Elvis Costello. Now, McCartney had to bow out early, and the sessions with Lowe and Edmunds were inconsequential except for Quintessence, a track produced by Edmunds that ended up being the first song on the record. The exception to names on the producer wish list was Elvis Costello. Now, Elvis was very enthusiastic about working with Squeeze, having been a big fan of their earlier releases. Elvis ended up being hired as the co-producer of East Side Story, along with engineer Roger Bakerian. By the 80s, Elvis Costello was already an international star. He had 4 successful albums under his belt, and Bakerian was no slouch either. I mean, Roger had worked on records with Nick Lowe, Dave Edmunds, the Undertones, as well as Elvis Costello and Squeeze. So Elvis proved to be invaluable, not only with the technical aspects of the job, but in keeping the band totally focused. Now, normally, the 5 band members of Squeeze would take their sweet time recording a record, spending far too many hours drinking at a nearby pub. But Costello was an austere taskmaster during the recording sessions, pushing the band outside of their comfort zone. Elvis was even adamant about the band making changes in their diet so the band members would have more energy. It's very interesting. During the early stages of the East Side sessions, the group lost keyboardist extraordinaire Jools Holland. He left Squeeze to pursue a solo career. Of course, he became a TV personality, occasionally returning with the band on later recordings and special live engagements. Replacing Holland was veteran Paul Carrack, an accomplished musician who had most recently completed a stint with Roxy Music and was the lead vocalist for the ephemeral band Ace. Although Ace was technically a one-hit wonder, their one and only hit was massive. It was the 1975 smash How Long. That rose to #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and featured an incredible vocal performance by Carrack. Paul Carrack is just one of my favorite vocalists ever. I mean, the guy can flat out well. More on that later. He can also compose, though. Carrack wrote How Long about the duplicity of Ace bassist Terry Corner, who was secretly playing with other groups unbeknownst to the band members of Ace. How Long is just a classic pop rock song. I mean, Phil Collins, for example, called it one of his all-time favorites. Now, before Carrack officially joined the group, Squeeze began recording tracks for East Side Story, including a Chris Difford penned tune that would become the centerpiece of the record. It was called Tempted, a song about battling unfaithful urges while being on tour. The first version of Tempted with Glenn Tilbrook singing lead was produced by Dave Edmunds, but that version was quickly dismissed. I mean, Elvis thought the version sounded like something from the Electric Light Orchestra, something they would have done. I mean, nothing against ELO, but it wasn't the vibe Squeeze was looking for, and it didn't fit the sentiment of the song at all. During a warm-up in the studio, Carrack started singing Tempted while playing the organ, and Elvis was blown away. I mean, at that moment, Elvis made the crucial decision to re-record Tempted and turn the lead over to Paul Carrack instead of Tilbrook, who was Squeeze's primary vocalist. Now, Tilbrook was initially upset at being replaced on the track, but then he heard Carrack sing it and realized Paul's brilliance. Tempted by the fruit of The way Carrick injected a genuine, soulful tonality to Tempted was just undeniable. Glenn admitted that Carrick performed the track in a way that he never could have. Anyone who has heard Paul Carrick's vocal on How Long will not be surprised at just how powerful his performance is on Tempted. After all, I mean, Paul Carrick is the singer that the BBC called the man with the golden voice, and it's very well earned. Far from being a household name, though, Paul Carrick is just simply one of the most unpretentious, down-to-earth secret weapons of the whole rock era. The average person, they may not recognize his name, but they definitely know his voice. I mean, in addition to How Long, Carrick delivered the lead vocal on Silent Running, a number 6 pop hit by Mike and the Mechanics. Gen X knows that one well. An incredibly emotive standout vocal in the band's heart-wrenching number 1 international smash, The Living Years. That was released in December '88, went to number 1. Carrick just has this magnetic soulfulness that draws you in. His phrasing just envelops your heart. Before Mike and the Mechanics, Carrick had a number 9 solo hit with Don't Shed a Tear, great song. That was in '87. Followed by One Good Reason, that peaked at number 28. And I Live by the Groove, that went to number 31 in '89. As a solo artist, Paul has quietly released 17 studio albums. Now, my favorite is his 16th, entitled Soul Shadows. That came out in 2016. On that inspired album, Paul sounds as compelling as he did back in the 70s and 80s. One of my favorite songs he's ever sung is Over My Shoulder. He's just best when he's pouring his heart out about the one that got away. Few vocalists can get to that emotional state of being. Now, Carrick is also a coveted keyboardist, playing on music with such luminaries as Elton John, Eric Clapton, the Pretenders, Roger Waters, Simply Red, even the Smiths, in addition to Roxy Music and Squeeze. Among his many songwriting credits is a co-author with the late Jim Capaldi and Peter Vell on Love Will Keep Us Alive. And now the Eagles were the first to record Love Will Keep Us Alive for their '94 Hell Freezes Over tour, an album with Timothy B. Schmidt singing lead. Love will keep us alive. Now, although it wasn't released as a single, the song sat on top of the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart for 3 weeks in 1995. Now, while you're getting more acquainted with Paul Carrick's solo material, if you don't know, check out his version of Love Will Keep Us Alive. He recorded it in '96, and it's just devastatingly pure. Love will keep us alive. Now, with the decision having been made for Carrick to handle the lead vocal for Tempted, Glenn Tilbrook concentrated on composing the musical arrangement. Now, although Tilbrook wrote most of the music for Squeeze, the task was never a breezy one. For Glenn, the Bob Dylan quote that if a song isn't done in a couple of hours, it's not worth it, did not mirror his experience. As Glenn revealed, I quote, "Sometimes writing music is like creating a sculpture. You're sitting there chipping away at the block of marble, and then you take a step back from it to see how you can make it more beautiful, but the route isn't always clear." End of quote. Tilbrook explored many different possibilities with his musical direction for Tempted before coming up with a catchy melody that just punctuated Carrick's soulful interpretation of Chris Difford's guilt-ridden confession. The instrumental track of Tempted is a conjunctive of sophisticated jazz-like chord changes that harken the blues feel from the Stax Records era, and an effusive R&B flavor bringing back the glorious sound of early Motown. Chris Difford on rhythm guitar, John Bentley on bass, Gilson Lavis on drums, Glenn Tilbrook on lead guitar, and Paul Carrick on keys. A vintage spirit is evoked in the opening of Tempted when we hear Paul Carrick playing his Hammond that sounds like a classic B organ from those magical days of formative R&B. It's just instantly captivating.
But it's not my conscience that hates to be untrue.
Now, there's a big misnomer about Tempted. The track is often described as being new wave, and it's not. I think that label is because Squeeze, for the most part, is regarded as a new wave act. And Squeeze did, of course, create many new wave gems that are so much fun to listen to. You know, Cool for Cats with Chris Difford's Cockney accent on lead vocals.
And it says it's cool for cats, it's cool for cats.
Pulling Muscles from a Shell, Take Me, I'm Yours, and Another Nail in My Heart, just to name it only a few. But Tempted is not one of them. Tempted is a soul track to the very core. The jazzy R&B music arrangement, Carrick's passionate lead, and the Smokey Robinson-like oohs in the background vocals. Chris Difford wrote Tempted while riding in a taxi, circulating through cross-city traffic on his way to London's Heathrow Airport to hook up with the rest of the band to fly to America to start a new tour. Difford assumes the role of narrator, who relays his futile attempts to stay faithful to a woman he addresses in the song while being tempted by the fruit of another. There is clever wordplay in Tempted, with Difford using a clock as an instrument of escape from his temptations, stopping time before he can't turn back his transgressions. Brilliant. Your body gets much closer. I fumble for the clock, alarmed by the seduction. I wish that it would stop. And I love the imagistic expression in the lyric. I said to my reflection, let's get out of this place.
I said to my reflection, let's get out of this place.
One has a vivid sense of what the narrator is going through without the need for graphic details. The opening line, I bought a toothbrush.
I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, a flannel for my...
That generated a Rocky Horror Picture Show type crowd response when fans in the audience at Squeeze concerts, they began throwing toothbrushes on the stage when the band sang the lyric. Even though Glenn Tilbrook yielded his usual lead singer spot to Paul Carrick, he does sing the first two lines in the second verse.
I'm at the car park, the airport, the baggage carrier.
And Elvis Costello pulls out an unrecognizable baritone to deliver the line that people keep on crowding. And a husky bass when he sings It's No Story I Can Tell, also in the second verse. It's an unorthodox stroke from the song's co-producer that totally worked, just like the doot-doot backing vocals at the end of verse 3 that lead into the final chorus. Those little nuances, they just really add to the enduring charm of Tempted. Tempted has been covered numerous times, versions by Sting, OK Go, Richard Thompson, Joe Cocker.
I said to my reflection, you're behind of this place.
Mickey Thomas, the Georgetown Chimes, Rockapella. There's Rita Coolidge and Jenny Morris. Erykah Badu recorded a version in 2019. Former Squeeze player Jules Holland also covered Tempted on his album Lift the Lid, which was a nod to Jules' history with the band. The song was, of course, memorably placed in the movie Reality Bites in '94. And there was an overdub of the original recording to make a new version of the song for the movie soundtrack titled Tempted '94. This pushed the song out to a whole new generation, and the beat just goes on and on. Over the years, Tempted has been featured in commercials for big brands like Burger King and Heineken, and the video game Grand Theft Auto Vice City as well. A great song can often get over-commercialized when used in advertising. Not a huge fan of that kind of song syncing. Sometimes they use it brilliantly, but I understand the business of it, of course. Music licensing is a big part of the process of recording and exploiting hit songs. I remember hearing this song as a little kid and just being completely enthralled by the organ and Carrick's stellar interpretation.
Said to my reflection, let's get out of this place.
Fast forward to the 90s when I saw it in Reality Bites, and I immediately fell in love with it for the second time. And then a few years after that, I had a week in my life where I pretty much lived every line in the song to the T. I was nearing the end of one relationship and tempted by another relationship that was moving quite quickly, and I was heading to the airport. As I was driving, I was going over this situation in my mind, and this song came on the radio. And right when it said, past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill, the billboards and the buildings, I passed by a large church, a laundromat, and several billboards as I was engulfed by the tallest buildings in that particular city.
Laundry on the hill, the billboards and the buildings.
As the rest of the song played, I had this like Jerry Maguire moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm free.
I sang the rest of the song to the top of my lungs. It was like a spiritual experience, man. I know you've all had similar experiences, and I'd love to hear them in the comments. As I got on the flight with the song in my head, this was before iPods and music streaming. This is when you had a book of CDs and a Discman. So the second I landed in the particular city I was traveling to, I got my rental car and I went straight to a Tower Records and I bought the Squeeze CD that I already had at home, but it wasn't with me. And this repurchased CD got played over and over for the week I was out of town. It helped me to resolve the relationships I was trying to figure out. And you know what? I actually bought some perfume and a novel. It just seemed like this song was the sign that I needed in my life. That's just what a great song does.
I bought a novel, some perfume, and fortune off.
As ubiquitous as Tempted is, the tune struggled to get exposure during his promotional campaign as the first single from Squeeze's East Side Story. Single stalled at number 41 in the UK, and it ran out of steam at number 49 on the Billboard Hot 100, and was a total stiff in Australia, where it only reached number 90 in 1981. It's just mind-boggling. Just as Chris Difford succumbed to his seduction, music fans eventually surrendered to the addicting allure of Tempted, making it the signature song for Squeeze. The week that Tempted peaked at number 49 on the Billboard Hot 100, Endless Love, the duet between Diana Ross and Lionel Richie, was spending its fifth week at number 1. It would actually spend 9 weeks at the top, denying songs like Stop Dragging My Heart Around by Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks. Urgent by Foreigner with that incredible saxophone solo. In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And Tempted by Squeeze. In an alternate reality, my alternate reality, I'd peel 4 of those 9 weeks off and slot those 4 at the top spot for 1 week each. But in the world we live in, Tempted is number 1 in my heart, and hopefully yours as well. It's certainly a song for the ages. By the way, Paul Carrack occasionally joins Squeeze on stage as a special guest to sing Tempted, but since his departure from the band in '82, the lead vocal duties for Tempted have reverted back to Squeeze co-founder Glenn Tilbrook during their live shows.
Tempted by the fruit of another.
And it is always a crowd favorite as the song continues to garner new admirers as an all-time classic of the pop music canon.
Your body gets much closer, I fumble for the part.
Leave us a comment about Squeeze and this delectable song. Tell us your thoughts on Paul Carrack, and share your memories of the song, and share an experience when a song seemed to describe your own life. I'd love to hear those. We do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I wear on this channel every single day. Go do a virtual try-on and design your own glasses at zenni.com. If you like this content, we admonish you to subscribe below to get more every day, to hear the song, this incredible song, hit our YouTube playlist. To buy Squeeze and Paul Carrack's music, click on our Amazon links. You can also get this new order shirt below. Click on the link. Also hit us up on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.